not your grandma's braces. Today, it's 100% digital. At Clear Smile Orthodontics, your unique smile gets expert attention and zero stock metal braces. Their advanced Light Force braces system or Invisalign will get you the best smile in the least amount of time. Book a free consultation online at clearsmilecharlotte.com.
Don't just love the lake, live it. Shop LKN Local, where you'll find unique apparel, home decor, and gifts with a lake vibe you'll just adore. Made by locals for locals, they'll even hand deliver to select zip codes. Shop LKN-local.com today.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Good morning, Cornelius and the greater Lake Norman area. This is, hopefully you're surprised, this is not Mayor Woody Washam. This is Robert Carney, Cornelius Town Commissioner, who is guest hosting for the mayor today and guest hosting About Town. And I've brought for the listeners today Andy Yates, extraordinaire, who knows all things politics, political strategy, and whatnot. He is a guru for us here, who does things all across the nation, but additionally so happens to live in our community. So we're very blessed to have him. So Andy, welcome.
Thank you, Robbie. Pleasure to be on. Happy to have everybody tuning in. Exciting times right now in the Lake Norman area. We've got a Senate candidate announcing today down the street in Gastonia, Michael Whatley, who's going to be running for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate with President Trump's endorsement. So that's an exciting thing to see happening. That's going to be probably the hottest Senate race in the country. There's people that think that spending on that race between the Democrats, likely Cooper, Republicans, likely Whatley, and all the outside groups could top $1 billion, which is just crazy to even think about. To wrap your minds around that the Senate race here in little old North Carolina is so important that $1 billion is going to drop in here over the next 18 months to decide who's going to be our next United States Senator and play a pivotal role in deciding what party's going to have the majority in the U.S. Senate. So it's all eyes are going to be on us. That's typical for North Carolina politics. We don't like to be in the background. We like to get all the attention. So it's going to be another year where North Carolina is going to be at the forefront.
Wow. So, okay, help me with something, because I'm not. First off, for our listeners, one of the things is Andy and I both walked in here and just said, "Hey, man, we're going to get the chance to jump on the radio and have a great conversation together." So I'm going to ask you questions that genuinely I'm curious about. Okay, so the one thing that I'm curious about is whenever you have an election or a campaign race for this Senate position at this scale, at this magnitude, with this much money flowing into it, my first, and maybe it's a selfish thing to ask, is how does North Carolina or how does our community win in that? Is that something that when you have that much focus, that much attention, is that something that we should be really thinking about how we could potentially leverage for the betterment of North Carolina?
Well, I think what people don't realize is this stuff's a job creator. There's small businesses that are going to benefit from this. There's, obviously your TV stations, your radio stations are going to benefit from the advertising, but there's people out there that print the yard signs that everybody hates. There's the companies that print and send the direct mail that, some of those employ a few hundred people. It's an economic, elections are an economic driver. Everybody talks about, oh, well, the money in politics is bad, and we can get into that discussion if you want to. But it is an economic driver from our state. It puts and it also puts attention on our state. I mean, you're going to see a lot of news coverage and international, national news descending on North Carolina. It's going to help tourism. It's going to put the state on the map for folks. Folks are going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's going on in North Carolina. It's going to be all out there in the forefront for folks. I think there is a way that that can be leveraged. I mean, if I'm in the economic development world, if I'm in the convention and tourism world, I'm trying to seek ways, while this attention is on North Carolina, to turn it into a recruiting tool for tourism, for jobs, that sort of thing. I think there's an opportunity there. Anytime you get, attention shined on, whether it's, a Senate race like this, or it's a major sporting event going on down the street at Panther Stadium, or something happening in Raleigh or at the coast. I mean, it's an opportunity for the state, and I think it would be a mistake for people not to think that way.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And because that's how I've historically thought of it, is if you are a state that is strictly blue or strictly red, typically there is a little win for your Republican or Democratic delegations to actually like provide resources to you. It's better to be on that seesaw of you could go either way depending on the candidate, depending on the state at a present point in time. So I just didn't know if that plays out as well for a campaign.
I
like
think it
this.
does. I mean, I think it's attention. I mean, there's going to be, I mean, maybe 2 to 3 other Senate races in the country that get as much attention as North Carolina does. I mean, the race with Senator Susan Collins running for election in Maine will certainly be one. There's an open seat, super competitive in Michigan. That's definitely going to be another one. There's maybe the Texas Senate race, maybe not. Some years it's competitive, some years it's not. The primary there is certainly going to have a lot of focus, and so that race will get a lot of attention, at least in the primary, probably in the general. But those are going to be. Arizona, I think may have a race this time. I know they've got a governor's race, so get a lot of attention. But there's not, there's just not a lot of races around the country that are going to get this level of attention. So it's an opportunity to, the race may get ugly. There may be ugliness around that, but it's an opportunity for the state to put a good foot forward, and for North Carolinians to make their voices heard at a national level on what's important for our country.
Yeah. No, I think that's great perspective, and I'm grateful. I wish you and I had more time together and didn't have like only an hour with commercials and things like that, because what you just laid out, I could probably bang you with questions for the next like 3 hours. I mean, whenever you talk about campaign finance, and I certainly have a lot of thoughts on that you mentioned. The commercials, brother, it is it is a very interesting thing that you hate to see the commercials with kind of the narratives that they play out and the way that they do them. But the unfortunate truth is, from the conversations I've had, it's like they work.
They work, and everybody says they hate what they call negative advertising, and we could, that's another thing you can debate, what is negative, what is not. But if you look at research, you look at focus groups, that's what moves voters.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what works. I mean, it's the most, at the end of every cycle, the most effective ads are the ads that are, whether they're negative on an issue or negative towards an opponent, whatever they are, those are the ads that motivate folks.
Yeah.
I mean, fear and anger are just greater motivators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel blessed that I've never had to experience that, and that's something, being a local elected leader, it feels like it's a much different campaign. I mean, you've gotten to see how.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm speaking just for Cornelius, but we've kept it very like, I'm all about what am I bringing to the table? Does that have value? And is that something that earns the general public's vote? If it is, great.
Yeah.
If not, that's okay. We've never gotten into, or at least I haven't experienced it.
And I think for the most part, Cornelius has been very fortunate in that regard. I've lived in this area for 15 years, and I've not seen an election there like that. But I will say some of the nastier elections I have seen have been local elections, not necessarily played out in the ads, but because it gets much more personal.
Yes.
And there's not as much issue, there's not as much differences over the issues. So the rumor mill and the nasty social media comments heat up and things like that, and people just get nasty and go after each other. I mean, if you want to see it locally, all you got to do is look on a few Facebook pages that talk about Huntersville right now, and it's nastier than anything you're going to see in a political ad. It's ugly and it's personal.
And I wonder, I mean, I wonder if what works at the state level or these larger elections, if it has the same type of impact at a local level. Whenever you're talking about community, people, personalities, sometimes I think that it might not have the same type of impact. Maybe that's the altruistic sense of me, actually hoping for that. But all right, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with you. Thanks so much.
We'll be back with more of About Town, hosted by Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam, straight ahead on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, a cold front is going to bring some relief in our big-time heat by the time we get to the weekend. In the meantime, it's still pretty hot today. Afternoon high temperatures in the low to mid-90s, partly cloudy, but we'll be watching for scattered thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon and evening. Most of those should start to come to an end as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures drop off into the mid-70s. Another round of scattered storms on the way Friday before a cool down on the way by the weekend. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. The Piedmont Healthcare Friday After 5 outdoor concert series returns to downtown Statesville. Y2K Kids brings a tribute show to the 2000s of pop and rock music. The band covers artists like Bruno Mars, Kelly Clarkson, Lady Gaga, and more. This free concert will be held on West Broad Street in front of Mitchell Community College beginning at 6 p.m. Beer, wine, soft drinks, and food will be available for purchase beginning at 5. Bring your chairs and enjoy a night of music with Friday After 5 in downtown Statesville. The 500 Club in Statesville presents Member Happy Hour on Friday. Members receive one complimentary drink ticket. Member Happy Hour is every first Friday in the courtyard, weather permitting. Visit the 500 Club online for more information on the Victory Lane Sports Bar and Grill, tea times, and live entertainment. Downtown Mooresville presents a mashup event of music and food on Saturday. The Festival of Food Trucks begins at 5 p.m. along Main Street. Plus, Liberty Park welcomes 38 Special to the amphitheater. Saturday will be big in downtown Mooresville with the Festival of Food Trucks on Main Street and the 38 Special concert at Liberty Park. Sparks will fly as the metal-mashing 2,000 horsepower machines of the Cookout Monster Truck Bash return to the dirt track at Charlotte for a night of high-flying action. Bring a Cookout Cup for free early access to the pit party beginning at 4:30 p.m. Gates open at 5, while opening ceremonies are at 7. Click on CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for Monster Truck Bash tickets, information on the pit party and ride-alongs, as well as other Speedway events. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
It's About Town with Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC. Local starts here.
And welcome back. This is Robert Carney, Cornelius Town Commissioner, joined by Andy Yates, and we're just talking about some of the larger political elections that are taking place and how North Carolina is planning to be a pretty big flashpoint in this upcoming election. So Andy, I really appreciate kind of your insight and perspective. What else is going on? What are you seeing around Lake Norman, the greater area? I know that's not always your focus,
Sure.
but you're a resident like everybody else.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you.
I mean, we all know what the big issue is. The big issue is growth. That's what everybody's worried about. That's what everybody's concerned about. That's going to be the focus, of the town elections. I think, you're going to have an interesting mayor's election here in Cornelius. I think Mayor Washam has done a tremendous job. It's right on his record. Former Commissioner Bilodeau is challenging him again, and then you've got a third candidate. First time that I can remember, you've had three candidates running for mayor in Cornelius, and nonpartisan election, but you've got a Democrat candidate, out there known Democrat candidate on the ballot for the first time. So that's going to be interesting to see how those dynamics play out here. It was a close election, last time. I think this time, we'll see how close it is. I think some allegiances have shifted that may have some impact on that election. I think Huntersville's going to steal the show again. You've got, I think it's 10 competitive candidates for town commissioner down there. You've got competitive mayor's race again. You've got nastiness that started online and is kind of spilled over from that way before the campaign started. So I think you're going to see differing visions. More controversy down there. Certainly more partisan election. The last time the Mecklenburg Democrats, and particularly the North Mecklenburg Democrats, really got out there and made it a partisan election for probably the first time ever. They had their blue ballots. They were very organized. They swept in with their candidates. I think I expect that from them again. But you've got the battle line strong, and the North Mecklenburg Republicans are engaged this time as well. And you're going to see, for good or bad down there, an election that's much more like your typical partisan elections that you see for state legislature, Congress, at the federal level, as opposed to, what we're used to around here, which is, roads, growth, crime,
right.
parks. I mean, this is going to be, it will probably be a more, more personality driven election, but it's going to be about both sides energizing their bases. And you know, it's something that's happening. It hasn't come to Cornelius yet, but it's something that's happening more national. I mean, it's happening more at the local level. I mean, politics has become more and more nationalized
Yeah.
with 24/7 news, social media, blogs, all of that. I mean, everything is, and you talk to your friend from college about who lives in Minnesota about politics more than you do your next door neighbor. Everything gets nationalized. We flip the Tip O'Neill all politics is local on its head, and now everything's national, and it's are you team red, are you team blue, are you team Trump, are you team never Trump, and it's that's trickled down to local elections, and sometimes overshadows local issues. Thankfully, that's not been the case in Cornelius,
No.
but it has some of that's trickled over down into Huntersville, especially on some of the DEI stuff, some of the transgender stuff.
Sure,
That's certainly played out in some of their board meetings and in a lot of the discussion online down there. So you're seeing national issues creep more and more into local elections.
Yeah. And it's I can say as being a first time elected, it was surprising for me. I spent a phenomenal time going door to door, wanting to talk to residents, and I would have individuals that just wanted to talk about the issues. They're like, let's talk about roads, let's talk about growth, let's talk about all these things, and that's very tangible. That you can create strategic plans, and you can say, all right, here's where we want to go. Here's the vision. Does this align? Is this what you're seeing? And I learned a lot from that. The other part is I just had people that would be like, which are you, Republican or Democrat? And I would try to stop and be like, hey, listen, this election's nonpartisan. Why don't we have a conversation about what do you want to see for your community? What's important to you? And then we can see if it aligns with it. And they're like, I don't care about that. Are you red or are you blue? And
Yeah.
and literally, there were times where I'd be like, well, I'm registered as Republican. They're like, well, good, then I'm going to vote for you. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's all right. It's
Yeah.
okay. It really is. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, you're right. That was a very eye-opening experience for me to see how, even if you're running, in a nonpartisan election, how much that kind of pervades in that. And
Yeah.
I certainly have strong opinions of whether it
Sure.
should. I used to joke with people and say, do you want your local community being more like DC or less like DC? I was like, have they got it right? Do you think they've got it right? And a lot of people are like, no, they're a bunch
I
of,
hope they're all saying no.
yeah. And I was like, you're kind of arguing for that. So that's just my opinion, though. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. There's what they're trying to do is they're trying to understand where do you align on basic fundamental values, and I certainly get that.
Mhm.
But that's been
Yeah.
an interesting experience for
It
me.
is, and I think part of it is that the gap between the two parties is wider at this point than it's ever been.
Hmm.
It's not, it's people want to, you go on social media and the hard right and the hard left talk about uniparty. There's not a uniparty. I mean, there's still a lot of issues, issues that aren't partisan, that aren't political. There's still a lot of votes at U.S. Congress that people don't even hear about that are overwhelmingly passed.
Mhm.
Almost everybody votes for it, or and that sort of thing. Just the kind of the what I call the keeping the trains on the tracks and the buses running on time type stuff. But more, I mean, the parties are further apart than they've ever been on. Not just the way I explain to folks is I feel like it used to be the parties all agreed on the destination where they wanted the country to go. They disagreed on how they wanted to get there, but they agreed on the destination. They agreed on what they wanted America to look like, and it was easier to work together. It was easier to find common ground. Then I think we've got to a point now where the parties don't agree anymore on what they want on the destination. They don't agree anymore on the vision for America. And it's hard to bring that back together. And I think that's trickled down to local politics because they want to know if you've got the Republican vision, the MAGA vision, whatever you want to call it, or if you've got the Democrat vision, or if you're somewhere else.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
I think that helps people define it. And I think the other thing, and I remind candidates of this all the time, and you and I've had this conversation with local offices. This is something you're thinking about all the time. Your campaign's thinking of something you're thinking about all the time. For good or bad, the average voter in Cornelius, Huntsville, Davidson is going to spend somewhere between 5 minutes to an hour
That's right.
thinking about who they're voting for town commissioner, who they're voting for mayor, most of them are probably going to spend a lot closer to 5 than an hour.
Yeah.
It's just one of many things they're worried about. They got a lot going on. They got kids. They've got their job. They've got their pets, their social life. They've got the heat to think about. They got a lot going on, and it's down the priority list. So looking at things through that lens helps clarify, I think, stuff for a lot of people.
You hit it right on the head. So what, since getting elected, one of the things I campaigned on, and this board, and certainly through Mayor Washam's leadership, was, and this was my judgment, or this was my criticism to the town at the time before I was elected, is that I said, guys, we are not aggressively talking to the community. We're letting other media apparatuses do it, and what happens, and this is just my opinion, what happens is if you let everybody else tell the story, then they start formulating opinions, and sometimes those opinions are based upon information that's not factual. So we as a board have said we have to start aggressively utilizing social media, utilizing the media, using all types of channels to try to start talking to our citizens and our residents. And the fear is that the moment you do, they're going to start yelling at you. They're going to, all the pent up anger, being stuck in traffic, all the things that they've experienced is going to come out very quickly. And we basically committed saying, like, yes, it will. Just keep talking. We have to keep talking. We have to keep telling them what we're working on, why we're working on it, and how we're trying to best reflect the values of Cornelius and where Cornelius wants to go as a community. And if you keep having a conversation, what's going to happen eventually, at some point in time, hopefully in the not too distant future, is the community's going to say, holy crap, they're not stopping. They're continuously feeding us information. And then now you start really having like a dialogue. So that's been the vision that we've tried to create for Cornelius, and one of the things that we've tried to drive through both the mayor and the board's leadership since being elected, and hopefully the community's seeing that. But you hit it right on the head. They've got so many things in their lives that they're focused on, between job, family, work, all the stuff. Sometimes you're not thinking about the town until you're stuck at a light and you're wondering, why the heck ain't I moving? That's when you start thinking about that stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean they don't care. It means they're busy.
We're
We're busy people. We live in a great place with a whole heck of a lot of things going on, which makes us even busier. But you're right. I mean, we've got to be, and I've noticed the town doing a better job with this. You got to have active communication, especially in aggressive communication. You can't be passive about it, especially when it's something that people aren't seeking out information.
Sure.
If you're Robbie's kid's school, you can just post it on a Facebook page, send it out in an email, because parents are seeking information. They want to know what the heck is going on at their school. They're very actively looking for that stuff. But when you're trying to control what's going on with the town, you've got to be aggressive. You got to find different, unique ways to put it in people's places. And we've got a super spread out communications world now. It's not when you and I were growing up, you turned on WBTV, WSOC to find out what was going on. You looked at the Charlotte Observer. That was about, maybe there was a local newspaper. That was about it for local news. I mean, now you've got Facebook pages for each community, both from, not just the official town pages, but you've got all these little groups, and you've got Twitter groups, and people posting on TikTok about stuff, and you've got podcasts, you've got radio shows like this where people are talking about it. You've got Cornelius Today, you've got Lake Norman. So you've got so many disparate news sources. So you've got to be active. People sometimes don't know where to go. So you got to get communication out in front of people.
Boy, it's a new world, isn't it? As I say, and you have to do it aggressively. That's the only way.
And people are going to trust what's out there. So you got to be out there.
Right. All right. Quick commercial break.
More About Town with Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam, coming up on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, a cold front is going to bring some relief in our big-time heat by the time we get to the weekend. In the meantime, it's still pretty hot today. Afternoon high temperatures in the low to mid-90s, partly cloudy, but we'll be watching for scattered thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon and evening. Most of those should start to come to an end as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures drop off into the mid-70s. Another round of scattered storms on the way Friday before a cool down on the way by the weekend. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hi, This is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Tired of guessing what's going on with your HVAC? Varsity Zone's smart AC monitoring with comfort sensors tracks performances in real time before problems happen. Enjoy clarity, trust, and long-term comfort. Visit varsityzone.com.
Have you taken the Desco Challenge? The people have spoken. Desco is where the professional goes for electrical supplies.
Hi, my name is Randy. I'm a general contractor, and I always trust the products at Desco.
See for yourself at descoinc.com.
Every day you listen to the news, but how is that news affecting your financial world? Things like your retirement and your kids' college fund? You need someone who can help you work towards your goals, someone to help you move forward in these times of change. Call Eileen Stoner at Morgan Stanley. Eileen has 28 years of experience as a financial advisor, and she's right here in Cornelius, North Carolina. To make an appointment with Eileen Stoner, call 704-896-9138. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, LLC. Member SIPC.
We're Possum. Fetch, heal, love at Dry Pond Animal Hospital and Pet Resort. From vaccines to vacays, we've got tails wagging and humans smiling. Grooming? You bet. Boarding? Comfy as your couch. Visit drypondanimal.com.
Jay White here from Centralina Realty. At Centralina Realty, we believe it's all about you. If it's time to sell your home, don't go it alone. Put the team here at Centralina Realty to work for you. Go to centralinarealty.com and let's get started.
If you're a builder and you haven't went to Little Shaver's Wood Shop, you're missing all types of lumber products, hard to find woods and paneling materials that are in stock and ready to help you conquer anything the job throws your way. Locally owned, Little Shaver's Wood Shop has a friendly, knowledgeable staff to get you in, out, and on with your day. Little Shaver's Wood Shop, 3301 Salisbury Highway in Statesville. Little Shaver's Wood Shop, LILshavers.com.
Harness the healing power of horses. With the amazing staff at Willow Equine in Mooresville, we create a supportive environment conducive to healing and growth, dedicated to self-discovery and overcoming adversity. There's a program for you at willowequine.com.
Need a ride? iCats has you covered. Tuesdays to the VA in Salisbury, Thursday to Winston-Salem, and Fridays to Hickory. Plus, run errands every day around Iredell County for just $1. Visit rideicats.com.
The number one station for people who say we're their favorite station.
WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. A milestone for Microsoft. It is now the second company in the world to surpass a $4 trillion market value, reaching the mark after the tech giant reported quarterly earnings that beat Wall Street estimates. It sent the stock soaring more than 8% in early trading. The company posted better than expected growth in its cloud business. Best Buy says it will test special sections in its stores dedicated to home retailer IKEA. The initiative will begin in the fall with 1,000-square-foot areas debuting in 10 stores in Florida and Texas. The pilot aims to make it easier for customers to integrate Best Buy appliances into IKEA-designed kitchens and laundry rooms. And Ford posted an adjusted second quarter profit that topped Wall Street's estimates, but the automaker warns that new tariffs will wipe out about $2 billion in earnings this year. Ford says costs are ballooning because of the levies, even though it makes more vehicles in the U.S. than any other car company. Erica Herskowitz, Bloomberg Radio.
Nothing but the best talk.
The area's best talk.
WSIC.
We're back with more of About Town with Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC. Local starts here.
Good morning. Robert Carney here, Commissioner for the Town of Cornelius, filling in for Mayor Woody Washam on About Town. And I've got Andy Yates here, and we were talking, we're just diving into all types of topics. One of them we're talking about that I thought was pretty insightful that you're making the comment, because I agree. We're talking about at the federal level, you know, these elections, and how both Republicans and Democrats, at least from my perspective, had always had the same vision for our country. It was just how we get there was vast and varying. They had two different foundational ideas of how to get there. And you said something that was pretty significant, and that was that for the first time, perhaps in our nation's history, that it might be differing as far as what they actually see the destination is. So maybe talk a little bit about that and how that kind of relates all the way back down to our local communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely happened, particularly over the I think it probably started in the 80s and 90s, but I think it's become over the last 20 years just a totally different vision of what we want, not only government, but what we want our country to be, and the role we want government to play in it. How involved we want government to be. You know, um, what we want in our schools, what we want going on in our communities. Do values matter? Does government have a say in that? Do we do we still want to be a capitalist country? I thought that question wouldn't come up, but I mean, I think it's a legitimate question that right, unfortunately, right now that there's some differing answers on it and what that looks like, and where's America's place in the world? I think that's do we lead by example, and and only go in when threatened, and try to America's going to be hopefully remain the leading nation in the world. I mean, I think I personally believe that's important, that we kind of try to be a compass for the world. And as long as our economy is as strong as it is, we're going to be a country that people look at for that, I think, whether we want to be or not. But, or do we get in, do we try to lead by example, and try to broker peace where we can, try to be leaders, or do we go stick our nose in everything? And, do we have military deployed all over the world in every little battle and try to be police force for the world? I mean, that's a big debate right now, and a vision of of what America is and what's important to our country. And it's I could say it as simple as, do we want America to look like Cornelius or look like California? And I know where I'm at on that. We see how the
Right.
policies have failed there, but I mean it's a different it's a I mean, we're legitimately having debates over things like defund the police, which 10 years ago I would have never believed was even a question that we'd be asking
Yeah.
asking ourselves. And I don't know that it's one. I don't think you're getting emails in Cornelius telling you to defund the police, but it's a legitimate question on the national level. It's come down to just some of our local communities. I mean, there's people, I've talked to friends 10, 15 years younger than me that say it's now in the dating world, where people are posting on dating profiles, if you're a liberal, don't message me, or if you support President Trump,
Yeah.
don't talk to me. People are breaking up over this sort of stuff, or even down to if you support the police, I don't want to talk. I don't want anything to do with you. It's like we can't even have a dialogue with people anymore, because the vision of the country and the role of government is so vastly different between what the two parties see.
Yeah. No. I certainly see and experience that, even from the position of a local town elected. I do try to constantly remind people that government can't solve everything. I do think I see a lot of people. I get into a lot of discussions where individuals think that it should be something that's mandated by your government, or it's some type of legislative action that needs to be. And I always try to and say, like, government doesn't solve all the problems, and they're not really built well to. If you look, you can look across the board at what government does well, and then you can look and you can probably find more things that they don't do well. And in doing so, you're going to realize very quickly that there are places where government kind of can be a foundational item for a community to prosper and thrive. But if they are like your emotional value system, no, no, that needs to be held in the household. That needs to be held in the church. That needs to be held. That is a person, and each individual needs to own and have that. Whenever you start trying to cross that line of where government being the moderator or the place in that, I've not seen a place where that really works. So
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and I think the problem becomes when government tries to do too much stuff. The government starts to do worse at the things it does well.
Yeah.
You can't be. everything to everybody. I mean, it's the same, in the business world, it's mission creep. Where businesses get in trouble is when they get outside their core services and they try to do too much and, expand into too many different areas. Not only do they, pardon my French, suck at the areas they expand to, they start to suck at what they were good at.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing happens in the government world. The core services suffer when you try to be all things to all people. And, I think we started to hit back on that and see a reset that in the 80s when President Reagan reminded us that the most dangerous words in the English language were "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
That's right. That's right.
America's a resilient nation. We're citizen people who've taken care of a lot of our own problems and solved our own problems. Have we done things wrong? Have we made mistakes? We've made some big ones, some horrendous ones over the years, but we've gotten a whole lot more things right than we've gotten wrong. And over time, we've managed to right most of those wrongs without the government ingesting itself into every step. And I think we have to get back to remembering that. I mean, and we have to get back to making decisions at the local level. I'd much rather have maybe not the current board, but 7 of my neighbors or all of the current board, 7 of my neighbors in Huntersville deciding what's going on in my local community than a bureaucrat in a federal department in D.C. Or you and your colleagues here in Cornelius deciding what's best for Cornelius families and than some bureaucrat in D.C. And, I certainly think that, our teachers at our local elementary schools know better about what our teachers need to be taught than somebody sitting in the Department of Education building that hopefully is not going to be there much longer in Washington that hadn't been in a classroom in 30 years.
Right.
If they've been in one since they graduate.
Right. No, well said. Well, yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm glad that you and I walked in and basically said, "Hey, let's just have a discussion," because you never know where it's going to take you. So what I can do is I can provide just a couple little updates regarding our town, Cornelius. Our community that I love, we love. Everybody is seeing kind of traffic, as well as all of the construction that's going on. That will continue. So I always like to say, anytime I get an opportunity to be here, if you are stuck in traffic or if you are stuck in a construction zone, take a breath and realize that this is us as a community striving to improve the roads that we have in the community. So, and it's going to take a minute, but we've got a lot of projects that have begun. We've got a lot more projects that are coming online. You talk about roundabouts at 21, basically fixing the DDI diverging diamond on both sides, the future widening of Catawba, Highway 21 roundabouts, Bailey Road, realignment and extension. We've got a lot of things that we're trying to get done right now, and we're just getting started. So there is more coming, and as projects come off, you're going to see more projects coming on. But with that comes a dramatic improvement of throughput of the traffic that we've got, and a lot of that traffic isn't necessarily from Cornelius. It's from our neighbors and friends in Huntersville and Davidson and Mooresville, all throughout the lake. And so they drive our roads too, and we have to work together as a community to address this. And so far so good. I think we're doing a really good job. The other thing that we're really working on is the focus and structure of how we grow as a community, because that's really important. And maybe we can touch a little bit more on that. That's kind of comes from my economic development background and expertise about, it's not just about growth. It's about how you grow, how you focus on growth, and the strategic plan that you put in place for your community to just really thrive and increase that quality of life. So we'll be right back.
We'll be back with more of About Town, hosted by Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam, straight ahead on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, a cold front is going to bring some relief in our big-time heat by the time we get to the weekend. In the meantime, it's still pretty hot today. Afternoon high temperatures in the low to mid-90s, partly cloudy, but we'll be watching for scattered thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon and evening. Most of those should start to come to an end as we go into the overnight hours. Temperatures drop off into the mid-70s. Another round of scattered storms on the way Friday before a cool down on the way by the weekend. That's your forecast In the WSIC Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. The Piedmont Healthcare Friday After 5 outdoor concert series returns to downtown Statesville. Y2K Kids brings a tribute show to the 2000s of pop and rock music. The band covers artists like Bruno Mars, Kelly Clarkson, Lady Gaga, and more. This free concert will be held on West Broad Street in front of Mitchell Community College beginning at 6 p.m. Beer, wine, soft drinks, and food will be available for purchase beginning at 5. Bring your chairs and enjoy a night of music with Friday After 5 in downtown Statesville. The 500 Club in Statesville presents Member Happy Hour on Friday. Members receive one complimentary drink ticket. Member Happy Hour is every first Friday in the courtyard, weather permitting. Visit the 500 Club online for more information on the Victory Lane Sports Bar and Grill, tea times, and live entertainment. Downtown Mooresville presents a mashup event of music and food on Saturday. The Festival of Food Trucks begins at 5 p.m. along Main Street. Plus, Liberty Park welcomes 38 Special to the amphitheater. Saturday will be big in downtown Mooresville with the Festival of Food Trucks on Main Street and the 38 Special concert at Liberty Park. Sparks will fly as the metal-mashing 2,000 horsepower machines of the Cookout Monster Truck Bash return to the dirt track at Charlotte for a night of high-flying action. Bring a Cookout Cup for free early access to the pit party beginning at 4:30 p.m. Gates open at 5, while opening ceremonies are at 7. Click on CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for Monster Truck Bash tickets, information on the pit party and ride-alongs, as well as other Speedway events. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
Now, more About Town with Cornelius Mayor Woody Washam on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
All right, welcome back. Robert Carney, Cornelius Town Commissioner here, filling in for Mayor Woody Washam. And I've got Andy Yates here. And so I took the last segment to stop and kind of give a couple updates and just talk about some of the things that the town of Cornelius is working on. I did that so that whenever the mayor gets back in town, he does not yell at me. So I've effectively checked that box. He'd be like, how dare you use my show and not say anything about the town of Cornelius and all the great things that we've got going on. So there you go, Woody, you got it. So what, Andy, while I've got you here, man, like what else should we jump into? What other exciting things can you think about that are going on? We talked about, let's see. I was shocked. I was honestly shocked when I was talking about how at, state, federal level, these campaigns get really nasty, really dirty. And for as much as we hate that, I hate that. Let me make it personal. I despise the commercials. I even despise the yard signs, all that stuff. It's like, but the reality is, and when running for the first time for election, it was actually you that said like, hey, Robbie, do you want to win? I was like, well, I do want to win. You're like, then you got to do yard signs. I was like, well, how effective are they? We don't know, but we know you got to do them. I'm like, okay, fair. Okay, I get it. And so that's been pain that I was willing to do or incur, and I hope the community is okay with that, with the necessity of that, but never having to do like the negative campaign stuff. And honestly, that's an ethical issue for me. I ask myself, would I even be willing to do that? And a part of me says no. Maybe that's why local politics is where I belong or what I'm good at, because there's certain things that I'm particularly not willing to do, but you did kind of enlighten me that there's some other things going on, and that some of the nastiest ones are actual local.
Okay. I mean, it gets. I mean, and again, I think a lot of times with local politics, especially smaller town politics, we could debate whether Cornelius and Huntersville are still small towns, but and how long if they are, how long will they continue to be? But there's not a lot of times the huge disparity over issues. There's not as much disagreement, so it gets to be personal. It gets to be people delve into things that are in people's past. It becomes like, fighting over something that happened in a neighborhood, something somebody said to somebody, how the face somebody. I mean, I've just made comments now that everything's online about how somebody looks during a board meeting, the faces they make, are they paying attention, that kind of thing. I mean, this stuff it gets down to a personal level sometimes, and maybe not everybody's paying attention to it, but it plays out, and it plays out, on social media now. I think social media's brought a nastiness to the local elections. It wasn't there before
Yeah.
because people, everybody can go out there and flame, and people feel like they have to respond and that sort of thing. When probably better off just to ignore it, not give them an audience.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my general problem of social media is it's very easy to say, terrible things about somebody that you've never actually sat in a room with, had a conversation with, things like that. So the anonymous commenting and things like that. Those are all things that, we joke and say, well, if you were in the room with that person, would you still be willing to make that, really terrible comment about them? And a lot of times that's not true. They would not. And then B, if you had that some time with that person, would you actually feel that way? And that's something that I think social media steals from us. That's unfortunate because that's the best part of community is being able to meet, to interact, to talk, to exchange ideas, to work on things collectively together. And if all your content generation is on a keyboard, then there's something missing from the equation.
And it also, I think it makes it easier, going back to something you were talking about with the way the town's communicating now. I think social media makes it easier for somebody unintentionally or intentionally to put misinformation out there. And if it gets picked up enough and repeated enough, shared enough, everybody starts to believe it if there's not something out there countering it. So I think that's why, another reason why it's critically important. And, Cornelius is fortunate to have a board now and a mayor now who recognizes the need to be proactive, to get the city side out there, to get it, just stay in front of what's going on, keep citizens informed, because if not, somebody's going to hear something third hand that may not be true or may not be completely true. They're going to post it. Other people are going to go, oh my God, this is awful. Everybody's going to post it. It's going to be out of control, and the whole town's going to believe it before the correct information even gets out there. So that's why, it's important to be proactive with how we communicate.
Yeah. What is I'm going to butcher this, so forgive me, but it's lies fly while the truth crawls, something like that. So I mean, it is true. Say even in my time of economic development, all the projects that I'd be working or the strategic plans, things like that, it always had to start with communication of community, communication to your elected leaders, because I knew I was, one, lie, not necessarily lie. A lot of times it wasn't, it was, a lot of times it comes from the basis of fear. Individuals are scared of a worst case scenario that doesn't exist because they don't realize that you've already thought about that. You've already planned for that. That's not reality. It's not, but you can't help, as a resident or a community member, when something's happening in your community, you never think that's one of the universal truths that I found. They rarely think first about what does this, new company, does it generate an opportunity for me or for my loved ones or for my kids or for my family? Or is it, wait, how does it negatively impact me? That's always the first thing that you really have to think about. And so that's the first thing you have to answer for is say, like, hey, this is a strategic plan or a project or something that you're moving forward. And you have to think of it through the lens of how does it impact the resident, and letting them know that, hey, we realize you have anxiety or fear, or if you're concerned about this, it's okay. We're thinking about that too. We've already got that on the forefront, and here are the facts related to that. At least I found that can be very, very helpful. But that's
It is, and I think another thing that the mayor and the current board have been very good at, that hasn't maybe not always been the case in Cornelius, is proactive listening as well. And especially to the people, and the Bailey Road project that was voted down is a perfect example of this. Especially listen to the people who are going to be most directly affected by something. It's the people that are elected to the board are elected to the board because the voters trust them to do a good job, but they also are elected to be representatives of the voters and to be the voters' voice. So you have to be, proactive listeners. And I think the current board has done a better job. And I think Mayor Washam has always tried to do this, is go out and listen to the people in the community.
Yeah.
And actively seek out their opinion on stuff before it happens. And part of that is making sure the correct information is in front of folks so people are responding to the correct things. And I think a better job's been done there, but it's also the active listening, and not just to the voices you want to hear.
Yeah,
Because
that's right.
I think
That's well
sometimes
put.
politicians at every level listen to the voices they want to hear and use that to justify whatever it is they want to do, and that's how you end up on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue,
That's right.
which is somewhere nobody wants to be.
We call that confirmation bias.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
exactly.
so yeah, I mean, I think for the town, we do these constant surveys, and I applaud any resident in Cornelius, any and all of the residents that take this survey. Thank you so much, because they don't realize it really does. Whenever we go into budget season, whenever we go into strategic planning and things like that, it starts there. We basically say, all right, we've asked thousands of residents to speak up about what is important to them so that we can figure out where are we putting resources and where are we putting focus. And so it starts there. And then to your point exactly is really listening. And I mean, we've had this conversation many times of saying, like, the community does have a voice. Our job is to listen, understand all the facts, understand all the dynamics that are at play, and make a very, very well-informed or the best decision. Now, I will say that a lot of the decisions that we get put in the place to make is a crap sandwich, and you have to take a bite, unfortunately. I joke about that all the time. Like, our commissioners were sitting there, and there is no great decision before you. It's only what is the least negative, impactful decision, and you're forced to make that one. But making it, that you're listening to the residents, you're listening to the community, you're listening to the market, you're listening to all these demands that are going on, and you're trying to make the best decision. Is it the perfect decision? No, it never is, because you don't have the perfect decision before you. You're trying to make the best decision and disturb the least amount of people, and and so I mean that's something that I've gotten in the town board, we've gotten very, very comfortable with of saying, like, sometimes it is a crap sandwich and we're all taking a bite. Let's go.
I cannot take credit for this, but I had somebody tell me about 8 years ago now that politics and government are the art of picking the least bad decision or making the least bad choice. It's rare that you've got, sometimes you do, but it's rare that you have all good options in front of you. In fact, it's more rare that you have no good options in front of you. So it's weighing, what's going to cause the least headache for people? What's going to cause the least problems? And you have to remember that. And you also have to get out there and listen. So it's not, you're not dominated by the loudest voices. I had a commissioner in another town, not Cornelius, tell me that there was a super controversial planning and zoning vote coming up, and they were hearing from some loud voices that were opposed to it. And he said he took the time, is retired, so he had the ability to do this. He took the time and went and knocked on doors in the neighborhoods that were going to be most affected by it. So he knocked on over 150 doors over a few days, and what he found was that the vast majority of people, that it was a small percentage that didn't want it. The vast majority wanted it, and didn't have a problem with it. So he said he felt comfortable supporting, and he said if he hadn't done that, he would have probably voted against it, because the loud voices were showing up at these meetings. But you get down to it, a lot of the loud voices didn't even live in the area they're going to be directly affected by it. But also the negative sides of life. You've got to be active listeners. I think Cornelius is doing a better job of that. I think we could all, government or personally, could all be better active listeners in our lives. But I think Cornelius is doing a better job of that.
Thank you all so much for being with us. We got to run. As I say, it's been a pleasure. Our town,